Hi everybody, it's Richard here again and welcome to another video. And today I've got a very special guest from the great state of Virginia, USA, none other than Sam St. John. Hi Sam, how are you doing?
Hello, Richard. Hello, everybody. It's great to do my first collaboration with Richard and to meet him.
It's great to meet you too as well. Today what we're going to do is, it's almost like a follow-up to a video I did, it must have been a couple of months ago, where I ranked the Byrds albums, and Sam suggested we do our top 10 Byrds songs. So I thought, yes, that's a very good idea. So that is what we are going to do. So do you want to start off with your number 10? And well, before you do so, Sam, can you, a wee bit of an introduction on how you got into the Byrds? Because you're a young guy. So how did you actually find them out?
Yeah, well, thank you again, Richard, for having me. And it's funny because this I love 60s rock. I love the Beatles, the Monkees, the Who, all those great bands, British invasion groups, the American groups, and guys like Donovan, Bob Dylan, people like that. I love that whole wheelhouse of music of Herman's Hermits, and that's another one. And the Byrds, I mean, I always knew, Mr. Tambourine Man and Turn 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 were all over the radio, classic rock radio, and in my area anyway. And I knew those songs and I didn't really think much of it. I love the idea of, the Turn Turn Turn, just the whole concept of the song. And, it's just one of those songs that was always in my subconscious. Well, I remember getting into the album Full Moon Fever by Tom Petty. It was his first solo album. I'm a huge Tom Petty fan. And they did the song I'll Feel a Whole Lot Better, which they called on his album Feel a Whole Lot Better, just some slight changes to the name there. And I remember listening to it, and I was 14, 15 years old. And I thought, I said, that sounds a lot like an old song. I said, it sounds like Petty, because Petty was so influenced by Roger McGuinn. And then doing some research, I found the Byrds version of it. I was like, wow, that's fantastic how Petty could just cover that, and it fit right into his sound. And so from that point, I started getting into the Byrds. The first album I got by them was Mr. Tambourine Man, and then immediately jumped over to Sweetheart of the Rodeo, which is my favorite Byrds album. And just kind of built from there. I don't own all of their albums, but I mean, I love every era. I even love the later stuff with Clarence White and Gene Parsons and that group. So they're just one of those great bands, and really should be known more than they are. I mean, somebody mentioned, I was just on a live stream with Rich Strickler, that they're not talked about enough on YouTube, and I fully agree with that. Everybody talks about the Beatles or the Who or the Monkees, Zeppelin, whoever. The Byrds, they fly under the radar. So I'm happy that we can kind of push some of these songs to the forefront.
Well, I got into them in the mid-80s. I bought the Greatest Hits LP because I saw it in the record shop, but I didn't go any further. And it was only until these things started coming out, and around 2000, I was looking for some new old music, if you see what I mean. I didn't want new bands. I wanted something I didn't really have. And I played my Greatest Hits, and I thought, these are only a $5 in Amazon. So I bought the first 4, and then I bought the next 4. And also, I think around the same time, I started buying the Moody Blues. So I always sort of clumped the Moody Blues and the Byrds together because I got into them at the same time. Okay, do you want to start off with your top 10? I'll let you go first, your number 10.
Absolutely, and I apologize in advance. We're currently getting a massive storm outside, so if you hear thunder, bear with me. But number 10 for me, again, it's probably a lot of people's number 1, because I just mentioned it when I was talking about my history with the Byrds, and that's the song Turn Turn Turn, and it's from the second Byrds album of the same name. And the Byrds are really, for a lot of people, this is peak Byrds, 1965. Short time after the first album came out, Mr. Tambourine Man. And obviously this was the song, it's written by, it was arranged by Pete Seeger, the American folk singer. And it all comes from the 3rd chapter of Ecclesiastes in the Bible. One of those classic folky type tunes that incorporated, songs that other people did, and then the Byrds took it and gave it that folk rock tinge to it. And I believe it was one of those songs. The single might have been just McGuinn in the studio. I'm not 100% on that. I know that was the case for Mr. Tambourine Man.
Yes.
That the single version was just McGuinn, and then the background vocals with Crosby and Clark. But I don't think that's the case for Turn Turn Turn. So I retract that. But yeah, number 10, Turn Turn Turn, and probably just because of oversaturation for me. So
excellent choice. My number 10, and it's from Fifth Dimension album, and it's the very, very catchy Mr. Spaceman, written by Roger McGuinn. I've always loved it. It's on the Greatest Hits LP. It's one of the first ones I enjoyed off it. It actually failed at the chart as a single in the UK, but only got to number 36 in the US. This has got top 10 written all over it, and I don't understand why. It's one of the catchiest, jangliest songs you'll ever hear from the 60s, and it didn't do too well. I don't understand why, but I absolutely love it. As I say, it's a McGuinn composition on his own. So that's my number 10.
Well, number 9, I'll stay in the same album for me. It's 8 Miles High from the Fifth Dimension album, and one of those great songs. It shows that the Byrds were pulling those outside influences. I mean, obviously they pulled from Pete Seeger and obviously Dylan and all of that, but it's one of those original songs that they pull from John Coltrane. That's who David Crosby was listening to at the time, and then also Ravi Shankar, the Indian musician, sitar player. And it's one of those songs that's perfectly 60s. People talking about all those drug references about it being the word high is being used all in it. It was peak time, 1966. I mean, you had albums like Revolver coming out and Blonde on Blonde by Bob Dylan. So that whole subculture was starting to develop, but I think it was simply just written because of how high they were in their airplane, and that was kind of just the inspiration for the title of it. And I mean, you have like stream of consciousness lyrics like round the squares huddled in storms, some laughing, some just shapeless forms, sidewalk scenes and black limousines, some living, some standing alone. Not a lot of lyrics to the song. It's only 3 little stanzas of lyric, and I mean it's just one of those iconic Byrds original songs. It's not a Dylan song, it's not a folk song, it's the Byrds. And I was fortunate enough to see David Crosby live, and he did this song just a few years ago, so that was really neat.
I saw Roger McGuinn live, and I can't remember whether he did it live or not, because it was 1987 I saw him, but still. It's regarded as one of the very first psychedelic songs, along with Donovan's Sunshine Superman.
Believe it.
I am. So my number 9's cover version, I'm afraid. I have a few cover versions in here.
Me too.
And it's from Mr. Tambourine Man, and it's a Bob Dylan cover, Chimes of Freedom, which originally featured on the Another Side of Bob Dylan album. Now, that album itself was crying out to be electrified. It was his 4th acoustic album, but that should not have been an acoustic album. The electric instruments should have been on that, and the Byrds took that and they gave it their jingly jangly sound, and they completely transformed that, and I love the vocals of it. The vocals are absolutely magnificent. So it gets my number 9. That's another one that got on to the Greatest Hits album as well.
Yeah, that's a solid choice. It didn't make my list, but I love their version of it. And I guess to mention as well, I saw McGuinn and Hillman back in 2018 when they did their Sweetheart of the Rodeo 50th tour with Marty Stewart and his band, and that was a fantastic show to see kind of a semi-reunited Byrds. So that was really neat. Number 8 for me is one that they played that night. It's, I think, the first Chris Hillman written song that the Byrds recorded, and it's Time Between from probably my second favorite Byrds album, Younger Than Yesterday. Absolutely love that song. Chris Hillman, of course, he was the the bass player of the group, and kind of, there's always that guy in a band that's kind of put onto the outskirts because he doesn't have the same kind of, ego or, whatever it might be. You had guys like Clark and McGuinn and Crosby taking the helm. By this point, Gene Clark was gone, so Hillman could really shine. Great, country rock tune almost. And, Hillman would record it again in the 80s with his Desert Rose band that he had. But just, I always love how he phrases up the amount of lyrics. Telephone communication, only a 3-minute elation when I hear your voice. I love how he sings that voice. And I think he talks now. He doesn't like to hear himself sing that on these early takes because he was nervous and his voice was still developing as a guy in his early 20s. But I love that song. So Time Between for me.
Excellent choice. And Chris Hillman really owned that album. He really blossomed in that album. I thought it was fantastic.
Absolutely.
Well, my number 8, that's where we're at. Yeah, number 8 is from Sweetheart of the Rodeo. And it's 100 Years From Now, the Graham Parsons song. I'm not a big country fan, Sam, to be honest with you, but I absolutely love that song. It does have a bit of a country tinge to it, but it's never been my genre. But there's something about that song. It's just such a quality song, and that's why it gets my number 8. I don't think Graham Parsons was the right person for the Byrds either, to be quite honest with you. I think he was almost like a visiting guest, and then he cleared up. But
exactly.
But great song, and gets my number 8.
Yeah, because Parsons, I know McGuinn kind of looked at him as the new guy and was always, I think during the sessions for that album, Parsons recorded a lot more lead vocals, but then McGuinn said, "Nah, you have your couple of songs, but they need to hear my voice to know it's the Byrds."
Exactly.
So, number 7 for me, this is probably this is the latest pick that I have in terms of the songs on my list. It's the Ballad of Easy Rider from the album of the same name. Absolutely beautiful song. It is too short of a song. It's only 2 minutes, and just a beautiful acoustic song by McGuinn, and lyrics by Bob Dylan. And McGuinn tells the story that Dylan wrote those lyrics down so fast because they needed a song for the movie, and Dylan wrote the lyrics down, handed it to the guy, and said, "Give this to McGuinn, he'll know what to do." And I love that story, and just beautiful lyrics about, the river flows to the sea. Wherever that river flows, that's where I want to be. It's kind of just like this, like a rebirth kind of song. And I love how he holds that, when he sings "To Some Other Town." It's sad, but it's also joyful how he sings it. And I absolutely love this album. I love that song. So Easy Rider is my number 7.
Excellent choice again. Right. So, all right, my number 7 then is from this album here, which I don't think you have.
Not yet, no.
A Bob Rathkin song called Lazy Waters. Now, this is not a fantastic album. It's okay. There's some good stuff on it, but as I say, Lazy Waters gets into my top 10 Byrds songs. It's so laid back. Again, it's the vocals that I really love, especially during the chorus. It's just beautiful. I really don't know how to describe it. It would be like Americana. It'd be your cup of tea. So it would, but again, I'm not a huge Americana fan, but this one just hits the button. So it does, and that gets my number 7.
Very nice. I like that there's some late career Byrds making appearances. That's really good. Number 6 for me, I'm gonna go to the title track of the first album, the Dylan song, Mr. Tambourine Man.
Yeah.
I mean, as soon as you hear those opening chords, just that in the bow down do 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 do, just absolutely 100% the Byrds. And you can tell how guys like Tom Petty, and then later, groups like REM and the Gin Blossoms, those 90s alternative groups that took that jangle, the Bangles or any of those groups that took that jangle pop. This is where it started. It's the introduction to to folk rock to folk pop. And that's what's so incredible about the Byrds is they invented folk rock, they invented country rock, and to an extent psychedelic rock. So they were just on the ground floor of so much. And having people in the group like Chris Hillman that would go on to become a member of the Burrito Brothers, or people like Graham Parsons that became a burrito. They had all of these talents that came into their fold and just created this magic. And as I was mentioning, the single, it's McGuinn with Crosby and Clark singing background vocals on the studio track with studio musicians, but then they re-recorded it for the album. And I'm pretty sure it took 3 or 4 times as many takes because Michael Clark wasn't a drummer, and they really had to kind of whip him into shape to get him working on the album. But yeah, it's number 6. It's a fantastic song, and their version is right there with Dylan's, and I love Dylan's version.
I love Dylan's version as well. They're like 2 different songs, to be quite honest.
Completely. Much shorter song.
Well, my number 6 is the opener to this, and it is So You Want to Be a Rock and Roll Star. I've heard 2 different cover versions of this. I've heard The Move do it live at the Marquee. I think it's the Marquee, and they do a really good version of it. But Tom Petty does it as well on his Pack Up the Plantations, and it's hard to tell which one's which. He sounds like Roger McGuinn, absolutely fantastic. I've actually got the 12-inch single version of that Tom Petty, so I bought that years and years ago. But again, it's a little bit like 8 Miles High. I think this is very psychedelic. It's a fantastic opener. It's a fantastic song, and I remember McGuinn actually did sing this acoustically, and they did it really well. So I guess my number 6.
Wow. Number 5 for me, this is I guess my first double dip into an album. It is this song, make sure it's the right one. You just mentioned it a little while ago, Mr. Spaceman. I absolutely love this song. Again, I was privileged to see McGuinn do it live with Hillman, and I mean, short little song. Really, it's showing McGuinn was always interested in space. I mean, he did songs like, Armstrong, Aldrin and Collins, and Learjet, and CTA 102 and things like that. He was obsessed with that kind of music. And again, they kind of, some synth rock they kind of started too with. They used a lot of Moog synthesizers and things that McGuinn really got into, and just really neat. The being abducted by aliens. Woke up this morning feeling quite weird. Flies in my beard. My toothpaste was smeared, which is always a weird line to me. That he had flies in his beard. I'm not sure. I never really understood that, but over my window they'd written my name. So long, we'll see you again. Just great song, but it's also got that country twinge to it. Yes. And it was just good.
Also a little bit of country in it, yeah.
Very much so, and it was showing that direction that they would go in the next year and a half. Yeah. So Mr. Spaceman is number 5.
Well, my number 5. Now, I said I'm not a keen fan on country music, and I've still got 2 country songs to come. Number 5 is a Pamela Poland song called Tulsa County from Ballad of Easy Rider. Now, it's the chorus of this I adore. I love whenever they're singing the chorus, they stress the 3 syllables of Mexico.
Yeah.
No, honestly, I love it. This is one of these songs that I can't play once. I have to play it all over again. And it is the highlight of this album. This is actually a very good album, but it is a highlight for me. And I don't know who Pamela Poland is, if you're aware, but yeah, I guess my number 5. But there's another country one to come.
Very nice. Number 4, I mentioned it earlier, being one of my introductions to the Byrds. It is from, whoops, not that one. It is from, the first album. It's the second track, I'll Feel a Whole Lot Better.
That's your number 4?
That's my number 4.
That's my number 4 as well. So we can talk about it at the same time.
We'll double dip. That's interesting. I mentioned it earlier. I love the jangle sound of it. It's that classic. For anybody that picks up a 12-string guitar, and I play guitar, that intro, that down, 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 down. That's just so Byrds, and it's so Tom Petty. And even the Beatles were taking from the Byrds. I know songs like If I Needed Someone, George Harrison admitted that he took from I think The Bells of Rimini, I think is the song
Yes, very similar.
that he kind of stole from. All in good fun, but feel a whole lot better. You have the great Gene Clark, who wrote the song predominantly and sings it. Just a fantastic jangle pop song, and it's been covered many times. But you might have something to add.
The thing about the song is, I don't know about America, but over here it was put on as the B-side to All I Really Want to Do,
Yep.
which was a top 5 hit over here. However, it was such a waste putting what I think is the best song on the album as a B-side.
Yeah.
But because Mr. Tambourine Man was a #1 hit here, the next song had to be a Bob Dylan song.
Yeah.
But why not put something else on? And maybe, well, I suppose in those days you didn't get a third single from an album, but even a double A side, like A Day Tripper, would have been. It should have got more exposure at the time.
Absolutely.
So you're number 3 then, because we've gone through both our number 4s.
Yeah,
so,
that's really neat that we out of all the catalog we matched.
We matched them. We might match them more.
Number 3, this was tough because I would say overall this is probably my favorite Byrds song. However, it doesn't sound like the typical Byrds, so I think that's why I put it at 3. But this is probably the Byrds song I've listened to the most, and that is "You Ain't Going Nowhere" from Sweetheart of the Rodeo. Absolutely killer Dylan cover. And what was neat, again, when I saw them, they opened the second set with this song because they played Sweetheart in its entirety on the second set. They opened and closed the second set with that song. And then they went back and did a few more songs for the encore, but fantastic song. It's one of those songs where I think when McGuinn brought it, they said, oh, we have this Dylan song to do. They said, what does it mean? And McGuinn said, I don't know what it means, but it's a Dylan song, so it doesn't matter. So just fantastic song. I love the pedal steel on it. I was fortunate. I was just in Nashville last week, and I got to see the steel guitar that was played on this album. And really great stuff. You have Clarence White all over this album playing his licks, which he would become a full-time member. But I absolutely love this record, and I absolutely love that opening. So You Ain't Going Nowhere cracks the top 3.
Good choice. My number 3 is country song as well, but it's from the previous album, and it's the Goffin King song, Wasn't Born to Follow.
Ooh.
Which I think is magnificent. It was a single, didn't chart here, didn't chart in America. Don't understand why. Maybe the Byrds just were no longer cool by the late 60s. I do not know. But I haven't heard any other versions of this apart from the Byrds version. And I believe this was on the Easy Rider movie as well.
Yes, it was.
It was, yeah. It's just a great little country number. Gets my number 3.
There's actually the first time that I heard that song on the last Monkees album of original material, Good Times. Peter Tork sings that song, and it's beautiful.
Right. Is it beautiful? Oh, I must check that out. I think I've got an MP3 download of that album, but I've never listened to it, so I must check that out.
It's a highlight for me. His voice fits it perfectly. All right, top 2, and they actually happen to both come from the same album, my 2 and my number 1. But number 2 for me, again, I struggled. This could have been number 1 as well. It's the opening. You've already mentioned it. So You Want to Be a Rock and Roll Star.
Good stuff.
Obviously, I first learned it from Tom Petty from Pack Up the Plantation. They do it so well, and he was even doing it up until about 2014 or so when he was doing shows at the Forum and the Beacon theaters, when he was doing smaller shows here in the States and doing a lot more of the deeper cuts of his catalog. And just what a fantastic opening. You have that fade in. You have Hugh Masekela playing the trumpet, the South African jazz musician, which was a fantastic choice. And again, this is one of those songs, I wish it was longer. It's only 2 minutes and 5 seconds. But there are great covers out there. REM has covered it. I think Patti Smith has covered it, and just what a great song, and you know how perfect of an opener. I mean, you can open a concert, you can open the album with that song. I love it. I wish it was 10 minutes long. That's all I have to say. It's a fantastic song.
Good stuff. Excellent choice. Well, my number two, you might think this is a little bit of a surprise. It is a Bob Dylan song, but it's This Wheel's on Fire.
Ooh, wow.
From Dr. Byrds and Mr. Hyde. I have heard a few versions of this. I've heard Susie and the Banshees. I've heard, is it Julie Driscoll or Julie Driscoll? I think she did it. And obviously Bob Dylan's version. Nothing beats this. It's the fuzz guitar. Now, if you take this song off this album, you realize it doesn't fit on this album at all. It's just completely different, because this is like a country album as well, but this is not a country song. It is a real psychedelic masterpiece with that fuzz guitar. It's brilliant, and there's great video on YouTube from around that time, and I think Gene Clark's playing on it as well.
I think you're right.
The video, brilliant song, gets my number two.
Very neat. That's one of those. I don't have that album, and I love that song because I know it because of the band. The band did a great cover of that as well.
Well, it was written by Rick Danko, the band, as well. So it was a Dylan. It's from the Basement Tapes.
Basement Tapes, right? Yeah. All right, the big reveal. Yeah. All right. This was hard for me, and I'll say when I reveal it.
Before you say it, please don't say Mind Gardens. Please don't say Mind Gardens.
No. Out of all the Byrds, no, Crosby was my least favorite. He's still my least favorite. It's not Mind Gardens. It's not Renaissance Fair.
It's not as bad.
It's My Back Pages.
Ah, good one. I was very, very close to getting that in. You see,
killer
that's
song.
what I said. Another side of Bob Dylan needed to be electrified, and there you go. It's your number one.
Right, and I know McGuinn has told stories because they talk about having to cut the song down to virtually just a couple of verses and a few choruses, because this is a longer song, and Dylan, his is more ballady on another side. But this is what McGuinn and Hillman opened with when I saw them. It was so cool to see. Hillman came out of one side of the stage, McGuinn with the Rickenbacker on the other half of the stage. They come together and they kind of embrace, and then they start playing this intro, and just absolutely fantastic song. The whole, I was so much older then, I'm younger than that now. And I will say, probably my favorite live performance anywhere is the version of this song at the 30th anniversary of Bob Dylan at Madison Square Garden, where you have McGuinn, you have Dylan, you have Tom Petty, Neil Young, George Harrison, Eric Clapton, all trading verses, and they do the Byrds version, but they sing all the verses so they can all have a lead vocal. It's just so good, and I love that. I love that fade in of the bone down 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 down. So crimson flames tied through my ear. It's so good. McGuinn was born to sing that song. It's a Byrds song that Dylan didn't know that he wrote. He wrote that song not knowing the Byrds because they weren't around, but it was tailor made for McGuinn, and it's my number one. I can't get enough of that song.
Perfect choice. Okay, my number one, and I don't think it's a big surprise. 8 Miles High. Fifth Dimension. Starting off with that bass, brilliant. And then you get the chiming guitar from Roger McGuinn. And then you get the absolute madness guitar from Roger McGuinn. It goes absolutely everywhere. It's a masterpiece.
Yeah.
It was UK. Are you ready for this? This got to the heights of number 24 in the UK.
Whoa.
Get in there. And it did a little bit better. Yes, it got to 14. This should have been number one in 1966, and it should still be there at number one in 2022. Brilliant song. Gets my number one.
Wow.
So
excellent.
That was great. Have you got three bubbling unders? And we'll just mention them, and then I'll mention mine, and then we'll wrap this up.
Absolutely. For actually one of them you mentioned earlier, it's Wasn't Born to Follow. I love that song. Just I love the lyrical content of it. And the other two are both from the Easy Rider soundtrack, and it is oh, excuse me, no, it's not. One is from the Easy Rider soundtrack. It's their version of Jesus Is Just All Right. Absolutely love it. And
All right,
then
I like that as well.
it's fantastic. And the last one, you mentioned the album earlier, but it's the title track to Farther Along, the old gospel song. I absolutely love that. I love how Clarence White sings it. So I absolutely love that arrangement of it. Love Clarence White. So those are my three.
Well, my three are from the Younger Than Yesterday CD, not the LP. Ooh. So it is actually a track that was not on any album, and it's the B-side of Lady Friend. Now, it did get on the next album, but it's not that version I like. It's this version, and it's old John Robertson.
Okay.
Now, I don't like the phasing on the Notorious Byrd Brothers version. This one doesn't have the phasing, and it's brilliant. And I don't understand why it wasn't the A-side, and the dreadful Lady Friend should have been a B. I'm not a David Crosby fan either, so I'm not. I thought he was the weakest songwriter. This one here, you have to get this album, and it's another Graham Parsons, Roger McGuinn song, and it's A Drugstore Truck Driving Man.
Good song.
And it's another country one, and I don't like country, so what is happening to me?
I think you like it.
I must do, but I love it. This is the one I wrote about the DJ that said that the Byrds' country music was crap.
Yeah.
So they wrote that there. Excellent. And lastly, you mentioned this got in your top 10, and it's Ballad of Easy Rider. 2 minutes of perfection.
Yep. Perfect.
So that was fun.
Yes, very much.
It was indeed. Yeah, a great band. I still don't think they get the credit they deserve.
No.
No, I'm not even talking about the VC here. I'm talking about in general. And especially, who's your favorite Byrd, by the way?
Oh, now it's Chris Hillman, but I mean, Roger McGuinn is the Byrds. So.
He is my favorite Byrd. Now, for the solo material, he is the only one I've really explored. I've got all his solo albums, and if you haven't heard any, check out Cardiff Rose. It's absolutely brilliant.
I just got it a couple weekends ago. I love it. Yeah, on vinyl.
Excellent. And a beautiful cover as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. His first few albums are very good. He did a couple in the 80s with actually Chris Hillman and Gene Clark. I don't think they're that great.
I have the first one. I haven't listened to it yet.
It's not very good. You think it's perfect, but it's not. But
yeah,
anyway.
You kind of like the Byrds reunion album as well.
Yeah, well, that's just to me solo songs thrown onto an album with Byrds written on it.
Yeah.
If I had to include one song on my top 10, it probably would have been Full Circle. But to be honest, Gene Clark solo, it's can't really.
Yeah.
So anyway, great stuff. Thanks for coming along.
Thank you, Richard.
And I really enjoyed that. And so that's us for now, folks. Again, thank you very much, Sam. I'll leave a link to Sam's channel below. Please check his channel out. Please subscribe. And the guy plays some mean guitar. He spends too much time with that Glenn Calloway bloke, though. But he mean guitar, and funny enough, Glenn Calloway plays some mean banjo as well. I just noticed that tonight whenever the two of them were playing a track. So excellent stuff. Okay, that's me for now, folks. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope to have another video quite soon. All the best now. Bye-bye.